And we are live. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Apologies for the slight delay in kicking off today. You won't be at all surprised to learn that that is entirely my fault, and the technical issues are entirely at my end because I'm completely incompetent. So apologies for starting late. I was also just trying to deal with the fact that Ben's background is so different today. It threw me off a little bit. But yeah, welcome everyone. It's good to be back. Welcome back to NFA Live. It's been a while since I was able to join with Ben and Rob and talk about everything going on in crypto. So we will be talking through a few things, including Mt. Gox, the upcoming Bitcoin conference, and a lot more besides in the stream today. Can I just let you know that if you don't already follow Ben and Rob, then you certainly should be. Ben is at Into the Cryptoverse, and Rob is at Digital Asset News. Guys, it's good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm pretty good.
Rob?
Thanks for having us back, Guy. It's good to see you. I know you're melting over there in Dubai. Are you in Dubai?
Yeah, I've been sort of traveling a bit the last few weeks, but I got back to Dubai at the weekend, and yeah, it's a little spicy. That's for
I
sure.
saw 144 degrees with heat index. I don't know what that translates to as far as real temperature, but yeah.
Yeah, it translates to don't go outside if you know what's good for you. But yeah, it's good to be back in other ways. Ben, how are you doing? And how are you? And more importantly, where are you? That's not your usual background.
Same old. I'm doing fine. Yeah, the Bitcoin conference is next week, so that should be fun. Yeah, exciting as always.
Awesome. Yeah, well, Bitcoin Nashville is going to be one of the things on the agenda to talk about today, because I think, well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it in due course, but I think this could be a big one for reasons I'm sure most people are aware of by now. But let's start off. The other big story at the moment that seems to be, the big thing in crypto, if you strip away all the politics, the big thing in crypto at the moment seems to be Mt. Gox, which is now, this is real after years of talking about it, and years of sort of speculating that Mt. Gox might be about to repay creditors. It looks like they are actually repaying creditors. I'm sure we've talked about this on NFA streams before, but now that it's actually happening, I think it's worth diving into. So the creditors are slowly getting repaid. So can I ask you guys, do you feel that the concerns around them possibly selling are justified? This is obviously what everyone's worried about, that these guys are going to get their Bitcoin, and I should say Bitcoin Cash, back and dump it on the market after waiting all these years. Do you think it's going to be a big deal? Is it a nothing burger? Is it an opportunity perhaps to buy the dip? Rob, do you want to start us off with this?
Sure. So, I mean, we've been hearing about this since, I got in 2017 and I heard about Mt. Gox, and I thought to myself, this will never happen again. And of course we saw collapses of centralized exchanges. But if we're just talking about the repayments, I always thought this would be a big thing. And everybody's been talking about it lately. And what I've seen so far is that maybe it's not as big as I think it's going to be. And the reason why I talk about that and say that is that there was a couple of threads, one from David Bailey from Bitcoin Magazine, the other one from Alex Thorne, who's head of research at Galaxy Digital. And when he talked about it, he laid it out pretty simply. He said, with Mt. Gox, when they got hacked, they lost 940,000 Bitcoin. And they only recovered 15%, which is 141, almost 142,000 Bitcoin. So right there, I'm like, okay, well, 142,000, that's not that much. Right now, it's worth $9 billion. So if we take a look at that and go, well, how did that affect with Germany? Germany didn't have, the German government didn't have that much, and they dumped it on us. And of course, there was a little bit of a cascade effect, and it did affect a little bit. But still, if you dive deeper in the numbers, it's not as bad, because as we go down to it, you have to understand that he talks about a payout, and creditors took a 10% haircut. So 75% of Bitcoin of this amount, or 95,000 coins, are going to be available for the early payment. So we have 95,000 coins, and 20,000 coins are owed to claim funds.
I'm hearing an echo.
Yeah, I'm hearing an echo. Sorry.
Hang on, let me mute myself. Not before time. I'm sure many will agree. And we'll.
Okay. How's the echo? Okay, great. So let me say this real quick. So you had 95,000, then 20,000 are owed to claim funds, which is the same thing that if we take a look at what David Bailey said, he said, yeah, we did the same thing. One of the most popular trades for Bitcoin hedge funds like ours over the last decade was Mt. Gox creditor claims. So they absorbed all that stuff. And if you know anybody about what, David Bailey and Bitcoin Magazine, they're not selling. So we have a certain rough amount of 90,000 coins for early pay. And if we take a look at the total numbers, we have to understand that the people that got into this beforehand were early investors. So how many of those are actually going to take profits? I personally believe that some people will take profits because you're up 140x or something crazy like that from when the hack actually happened. But will they sell everything? I think if you got into Bitcoin back then and you realize, as far as the time horizon, you will probably say, well, this isn't the greatest time in the 4-year cycles to actually really start to dump Bitcoin. What if I do that, then maybe I'm missing out on maybe the next blow off top. So I still think there's going to be some type of sell-off. You can actually track this over at Arkham Intelligence. I'll link that. I'll give it to Guy and he can link in the description where you guys can track all the different wallets that are there and see exactly what's happening. But if you look at the flows right now, there are some that are going out to Kraken. There are some that are going out to centralized exchange, and they're actually being picked up by those individuals, but not too many people are selling right now. Does that mean that we won't see a decrease in price? We'll probably see a decrease in price, but you have to remember that it's not just like we're in a vacuum. And just because, there's some sellers, you have to understand there's arbitrage, there's leverage traders. Of course, if we have leverage and you start to see some sell-offs, then the bots will pick that up. The bots will start trading. You'll get more people liquidated because there's a decrease in price, and you'll see a reduction in the price action. And that's just how it goes across the whole spectrum. And the last thing I'll say is this. I think the most people that were selling lately, it wasn't so much as far as like the German government or the people getting their Mt. Gox Bitcoin. I think it was the irrationality of the markets going, oh, I need to sell because I heard a story. And if I don't sell now, I'm going to lose everything, or I need to take some profits off the table. And that's just the normalcy of it. I don't think it's that big of a deal, but I've been wrong before. So we'll see.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, I think you're right in a way. I think it is. I think there seems to be. I think what happened with Germany and selling showed that there is demand in the market. Okay, Bitcoin dipped to 53K or something around that, and it wasn't all that nice to see. But there are plenty of people out there, not just ETF buyers, it seems, who are willing and kind of waiting, I think, to hoover this up. So Ben, what's your read on this? Do you kind of share mine and Rob's view on this? And also, do you think the actual FUD around the selling itself is sort of perhaps almost as damaging, if not more damaging, perhaps to the price than the selling?
Yeah, I mean, I think I generally agree with what Rob said. I also think that there's been all sorts of these stories over the last couple of years. And even the most recent one with the German government selling. It's funny because we see this type of seasonality show up a lot on the Bitcoin charts where even if you think back to last year in the summertime, there was sort of the market felt rolled off for a little bit, and we didn't really go anywhere between the months of April to October. So it was kind of like those summer months where the market really didn't go anywhere. And I kind of think that the stuff that happened with the German government selling, I think price action was actually more, I think it was more tied to just seasonality in the summer, right? That's what I generally think. I don't think that it is any more complicated than that. And if you look at so many prior years with Bitcoin, even in years where Bitcoin continued to go up in Q4, like if there was a Q1 rally and then a Q4 rally, in all of those years, at least for the most part that I can remember, 2013, 2017, 2021, even uh 2016, like a lot of those years, there was this sort of lull in the market in the summertime. So I think that is more so to blame for the sort of the drop to 53K that we had, rather than the German government selling. So yeah, I mean, as it relates to Mt. Gox, I would say it probably, like in and of itself, I don't think that is going to have a huge impact on the market. I mean, I do think there is some validity to the idea that the market's a lot bigger than I think a lot of people give it credit for. You know, we throw out numbers of like, oh, you know, this person's selling 100 million, or that person, you know, this entity is selling 1 billion. I think the market's just a lot bigger than I think any of us can really than we realize. And so, yeah, I mean, look, the German government just dumped all that Bitcoin, and price went down, but you know, it often goes down in the summer. Um, Actually, in 2013, we had a really massive pump in the first quarter of the year, and then we found a summer low on July 5th, which is exactly when the most recent low was on July 5th. So it's kind of interesting how some of this stuff tends to repeat itself. So I would say like these, I guess I always go back to the idea that narrative follows price and not the other way around. So for instance, if the price of Bitcoin were to drop again, let's say if it were to go to back to 53K or lower, then I'm sure everyone would jump on the bandwagon and say, "Oh, it's because of Mt. Gox," right? But I mean, if we were just keep going up, um, then the market we'll just sort of brush it off. We won't care about it anymore. We'll just start talking about something else. So, yeah, I don't really think it holds a lot of weight. Um, but yeah, that's my opinion.
Okay. Okay, cool. Thanks. Well, that kind of makes me want to segue, not because I was going to ask you guys next about sort of looking past Mt. Gox, but actually, you know, what you think the biggest concern for crypto might be. But I just want to park that for a moment, because I think you're right, Ben. I think, you know, and we're seeing this, as we've spoken about many times before, we're seeing this seasonality reflected in lots of other metrics, in social metrics and things like that, as you've pointed out. You know, and there just seems to be a lot of sort of general kind of apathy around the crypto market at the moment. So, bearing that in mind, then, do you guys feel that perhaps what with you know, we're sort of halfway through the summer now. Obviously, Powell has sort of hinted that we at rate cuts, a rate cut coming maybe in September, I think it was talked about. And also, of course, next week is the big event in crypto's calendar, which is, of course, the Bitcoin conference. This year, it's happening in Nashville, and they've got a fairly well-known figure doing the keynote speech, or certainly set to do the keynote speech, unless anything else dramatic happens. So my question is, guys, do you feel that perhaps what with Trump about to speak at the Bitcoin conference, could this be a sort of pivotal moment for crypto? Do you think? Is this going to be something that maybe wakes up a lot of people to what is going, you know, to crypto in general, and perhaps could maybe provide a bit of fuel for the markets? Rob, what's your take on it?
I feel like every 4 years or so, it seems like we level up with who is talking about Bitcoin and crypto and digital assets, and who is investing. I remember back in 2017, it was a big thing for Bitcoin to be listed on, you know, the CBOE, and we're going to do you can actually short it and do all the things that you could do, and everybody was so excited about that. And of course, it marked the very top on December 17th, I think it was, as it dropped off, and then everybody started to short Bitcoin. But I mean, we had that part, and then in 2021 we got, you know, a sovereign nation. El Salvador came in and said, "Hey, we'd like to make this legal tender," and that was another another big, feather in the cap. And now this year, I mean, if we would have had two presidents, the incumbent and the presidential candidate, talking about Bitcoin in 2017, it would have absolutely exploded. And now we have that exact same thing. And actually, I take that back. It's three, because it's RFK Jr., it's President Joe Biden and his administration, and President-elect of 45, Donald Trump. So I feel like we're kind of leveling up to where we're supposed to be as far as Bitcoin and the mass adoption. Now, for me to say, to tell anybody well, this is who you should vote for or whatever else, I can't tell you that. But I think it's to say it's a watershed moment. It just feels almost surreal to have this many people talking about it, as opposed to going back to 2017 and just seeing the kind of news articles we had over there. So we'll see how it goes. I just will remind everybody that all politicians are liars. And if he comes through with it, fantastic. But you cannot deny that just them talking about it is big for the space. And that's all I'll say about that.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Ben, you're going to be in Nashville if you're not there already. Do you feel this could be a big moment? Is I'm totally on board with what Rob says. It does feel like we've sort of leveled up massively. Do you think this could be great PR for crypto, or do you think there's maybe a sense that it might sort of suggest to a lot of people that crypto is sort of more a thing for maybe people on the right? Do you think it could go either way?
I wish that we could look at Bitcoin in a way that's not political. I don't think that Bitcoin should be a political thing. I think it should appeal to both sides, honestly. Yeah, I mean, I think it is a really interesting moment for crypto, because if I remember correctly, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the last couple of election cycles, I don't think that Trump was pro crypto. Was he pro Bitcoin?
No. He was not.
Yeah, but I will say this about that. There's and it's not just with Trump. A lot of people will have an opinion about Bitcoin, and then it'll be a negative opinion. And then in the future, at some point, they change their mind, right? And then a lot of people then give them crap for their prior opinions. But I think that, people should be allowed to change their mind. I mean, that's part of the whole journey that, the crypto industry is on. You should be allowed to change your mind about it. And I mean, even in markets, you have to be willing to change your mind a lot. So no, I think it could be a really interesting moment for crypto and for Bitcoin specifically. Whether it has an immediate effect on the price, who knows? I have no idea. I know a lot of times around the conference, the price kind of isn't really moving that much. Just anytime I'm at the conference, I don't know if you guys have noticed that before, but anytime I'm at the conference, it kind of seems like the price, it's almost like the price moves up in anticipation of the conference. And then at the conference, it either is flat or, goes slightly back to the downside. I mean, even last year, the price of Bitcoin wasn't really doing much at the conference. But then, of course, following the conference a few months later, we had a larger move to the upside. And it's kind of like with the Bitcoin halving. You guys remember the Bitcoin halving back in April, and everyone thought the price of Bitcoin was only going to go up after that. And they sort of discounted the idea of going down in the summer. But a lot of times the price of Bitcoin after the halving doesn't really get moving until about 6 months after the halving, right? So I think that, I don't know if it'll have an immediate effect on price, but I do think, I mean, look, we've never had a Bitcoin conference where we've had two presidential candidates showing up to talk about Bitcoin, right? That is something, right? It's not just nothing. I think it will be covered. I'm sure there will be news articles about it and coverage on Trump speaking at the Bitcoin conference. So I think it would be foolish to say that it will have no effect on the crypto industry. It should bring more eyes to the crypto industry, which is kind of interesting because, as Guy was saying right now, there hasn't really been that much interest in crypto, which is really interesting to see. this like social interest is still just so low, which is kind of crazy because Bitcoin is at basically it's at all-time highs. I mean, it's close though. It's not at all-time highs, but it's basically at the the 2021 highs, but social interest is still basically at lows. So maybe it'll be the conference that starts to bring some eyes back to the industry.
Yeah, I remember. I think it was 2021. Jack Dorsey hosted the B Word conference. I think it was, and that really sort of kicked off a real sort of acceleration in Bitcoin's price. So I think these things can have an effect, but I guess a lot of it hinges. I mean, I guess the publicity is one thing. It will be covered. People will be like, "Oh, Trump is at the Bitcoin conference," and then Bitcoin and crypto more generally are in their minds. But I guess a lot hinges on what he'll actually say, and whether that sort of then motivates people to actually go out and buy Bitcoin. Or whether they just go, oh well, that's interesting. Oh, he's into Bitcoin now. All right, cool. There's a lot more that needs to happen as a result. But it's certainly great publicity. But yeah, I think Ben, are you going to be? You're going to be at the conference in person?
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be getting in. I think I'm getting there the 24th. And yeah, we'll be there for the whole ITC. For the most part, the whole Into the Cryptoverse team will be there because we're doing our annual like party or whatever. But yeah, the 24th through the 28th, I think. And yeah, it should be interesting. I mean, I think this is the first time they've done it outside of Miami, right? Or at least in recent years.
Yeah.
That's I think
Sorry, Rob.
No, go ahead. Oh, go ahead, guy.
No, I was just going to ask when Ben's keynote on Bitcoin dominance is. What day is that going to be on? Just so as I know.
I'm not a speaker, but don't worry. I'll be handing out flyers that just say Bitcoin dominance flyer.
If you get a couple of minutes with Trump, see if you can explain Bitcoin dominance to him in that time. Then you'll have him. Then he'll be truly orange pilled. Sorry, Rob, I cut you off.
We've reached the point where even I'm sick of talking about it.
I find that hard to believe. Come on. No, I was going to say that. Yeah, I'll be there. Like Ben will be there. I'll be there. There's be a lot of people there this time, so it should be fun times. Especially on Saturday night. We'll see how that all plays out. And who all the different people who will attend that party.
There'll be some characters there for sure. That's the great thing about these conferences. I think the Bitcoin conference in particular, you really do get some genuine eccentrics turn up, don't you? Eccentrics is one word for them, I suppose, for a lot of them. Okay, let's move on. I just want to circle a little bit back to Mt. Gox. Not Mt. Gox per se, but sort of assuming that Mt. Gox is going to be in the rearview mirror before too long, inshallah. What is your guys' biggest concern for the crypto market at this point in time, assuming we're kind of past Mt. Gox? Do you think there's are there any sort of big clouds on your horizon? Are there any particular events or possible I don't want to say black swans because black swans could be anything. But is there anything in particular what do you think is the biggest challenge facing the crypto market at the moment, assuming Mt. Gox is sort of done and dusted? Ben, do you want to start off?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really think Mt. Gox and even the German government, so I've never really thought of those as big events that we should be that concerned about. It doesn't mean there's not going to be like short-term selling pressure, but I don't think it's something that's overly concerned about. Or at least I don't think while it might be, maybe this is the way to phrase it, while it might be enough to temporarily affect the price, if you want to assume that that's the reason why Bitcoin's price dipped, it should, like, that kind of stuff should not be the reason that there's a more durable change in the market direction, right? I think the biggest risk for crypto is just all the macro stuff. I've looked at all these different analogs with Bitcoin and sort of the summer drops, and then we go back up in Q4, and even a lot of times we keep going up in the post-halving year, right? I mean, like, this is the first cycle where the unemployment rate is steadily going up. If you look at the entire crypto industry, or the entire lifespan of crypto, the unemployment rate, with the exception of the spike in 2020, it's always been trending down. Now, I don't know if that's going to have an effect on this cycle at some point. It's impossible to time when the market would actually start to care about something like that. So it's kind of one of those things where, like, my heart says Bitcoin is, the best asset. It's only, it's gonna, because they're never gonna stop printing money. Bitcoin should theoretically, or, that's what's the saying, like, there's no top because they'll never stop printing money, right? So I mean, theoretically, you wait long enough, the price of Bitcoin will go higher, right? That's sort of like what my heart says. My brain's like, well, these assets are really great, and so too was the internet, when it came out. But when the unemployment rate starts to go up, it doesn't matter how great the asset is. If people can't buy the asset because they're too busy buying groceries, that can have a negative effect. So that's probably, like, I think that's the real main risk. It's funny because if you think about a lot of the risks that were talked about back in 2022, it always feels like we were looking in the wrong place. Like, everyone was focused on Binance, but they should have been focused on FTX. Everyone was focused on Tether, but it was actually USDC that temporarily lost its peg, and then also the stablecoin on Luna as well. So it's funny because it seems like a lot of times where, the industry as a whole is concerned about the wrong thing. So something like Mount Gox, or even the German government selling, it's one of those things that about. It's not a huge surprise. It's the surprises that have effects on the market. Something that we're not considering. That's what I think affects the market. And I think one of the reasons why the labor market, while it has been, it's been softening up a little bit, I think one of the reasons why the markets don't care is because it's been a steady rise in the unemployment rate. Like, it hasn't been super rapid. In the context of history, even 4.1% is still relatively low. I think that the main reason the unemployment rate's going up isn't even because of layoffs. It's mostly just, there's an expanding workforce, and it's just harder for people to find new jobs, right? Hires have gone down a lot. New hires have gone down, but layoffs haven't really picked up that much. Initial claims are, I mean, they came in today. They're a little bit back up today. I think back to 243,000. But in order for it to be even considered somewhat recessionary, I think the initial claims would have to be printing north of 300,000. And I've been saying that for the last 2 years. Now, had you asked me 2 years ago, would we still be below 300,000 by this point? I would have said no. But here we are, right? The U.S. economy has been super resilient. There's no doubt about it. So I would say that's probably the biggest concern. But I mean, with that said, I do think, as an investor, you have to figure out, where you want to put your money. If you just sit in cash forever, you are likely going to lose purchasing power just due to inflation, right? Because even if you, and I'm not saying there's no room for fixed income. I have some of my own money in fixed income, but your real return right now, let's say you're getting 5% on a T-bill and inflation's at, say, 3%, your real return's 2%. Um, so, like, that's something that's better than nothing. But if you are trying to put your money somewhere, then you have to figure out where you're going to put it. And if you're going to put it in crypto, the reason I talked about Bitcoin dominance so much was because I just thought, Bitcoin should reclaim market share. Therefore, just put your money in Bitcoin. And there's two reasons for that. Number one is that if Bitcoin, because we still haven't pivoted from looser policy or from tighter monetary policy to looser policy, we haven't made that pivot yet. Bitcoin should still do better than altcoins. And I know that is not something people want to hear, but look, 2 years ago, if you told people that dominance would go up every quarter for the next like 7 or 8 quarters straight, they would have laughed. You know, they said, no way, you know, the altcoin market will do better. And here we are. And, you know, every quarter, you know, since for the last, what, like 8 quarters, the low on dominance has been putting in higher lows. So that's why I say, you know, like if you're going to put your money in crypto, I think Bitcoin is the best place to be. Not because it can't go down. We just saw it go down, maybe due to the German government, right? But it's mostly just because it will more likely stand the test of time if there is some type of like negative catalyst, right? If there is something bad, even as bad as what we saw with the pandemic, Bitcoin still recovered and went on to new highs. But you know what didn't recover? A lot of altcoins sold off and never went to new all-time highs. So that's the thing about, you know, it's okay to have concerns. It's okay to look at Mt. Gox. It's okay to look at the German government and stuff. But those are known things. It's the unknown thing. And I think for right now, that just is there going to be some type of event that causes the uninversion of the yield curve? And what type of event would that be? You know, what type of event would it be? And I don't know. I have no idea what event's going to actually cause it. But, you know, there's a lot of people that'll say bull markets don't just end. They don't just end because whatever reason. They get murdered by something. Something happens and it kills the bull market, right? And no one knows, absolutely no one knows what that'll be.
Very true. Thanks, Ben. I've just noticed your T-shirt as well, which is pretty. Is that what's a few trillion between friends?
Yeah, what's a few trillion among friends? I've had this T-shirt for years because it was always the slogan was like we're going to 10 trillion plus or minus a few trillion. What's a few trillion among friends, right? Yeah, I think at this point it probably should be Congress's slogan. Because they're just printing money every, you know.
Yeah, it should be that, and it should be what's a few insider trade among friends.
Yeah, there you have it. Yeah, Nancy Pelosi's had quite the track record with her trades.
Yeah, that's who we should all be following.
We just need her to start buying Bitcoin. We'll just follow her.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, Ben, you should bring some of those T-shirts and start selling merch at the Bitcoin conference. I'd pick up one of those. I think we are going to
bring some T-shirts, but we're not going to sell them. We'll just give them away.
Ooh, baller! Nice. That's a good move.
It's not a bear market at Ben Cowan's house. That's for sure. And yeah, we should get Nancy Pelosi on the show, shouldn't we? That would be an interview. And I saw as well there was that senator. He's just been convicted of taking bribes in gold and cash and luxury cars and he said Bitcoin was an ideal tool for criminals or something like that, which I thought was a bit of poetic justice there. Rob, following on from what Ben said, are there any particular things that are concerning you for crypto at the moment? What do you think is the big risk?
No, Ben laid it out pretty extensively. It's very simple. It's macro, and if we can get through macro, it's okay. Bitcoin's never gone through recession or a great recession. It was created because of the Great Recession. Now, some people will say, well, what about with COVID during that time frame in 2020 when there was two time points for GDP decline? I said, yeah, that's true, but it was a very major event, and it was only for 2 pieces there. So if we go through, everybody says crypto is great and Bitcoin's great, and it is, it's fantastic, but let's see how it could actually go through an actual recession when people really get risk off. And even though, and I think Ben said it right, my heart says this is the greatest asset of all time. But my brain understands that the market is irrational. And they are going to look at that and say, if I'm selling off and I can't afford X, Y, and Z, I have to put this into cash to provide for my family, even though I know Bitcoin at some point will go up. And it's true. But you have to have a long horizon. And if you don't have that long horizon, you don't have money to actually pay for these things, you're going to start to put yourself into cash and you're going to be risk off. And that's how I see things. And that's just how it'll be.
I'd like to also add one thing about that too, because if Rob's right, there was technically the pandemic recession, but it wasn't really sort of a real recession in the sense that it takes place over long period of time, and they're not like just printing money to get us out of it immediately. I think that Bitcoin would survive a recession, and it would probably just make it even stronger over the long term. I mean, it's just one of those, it's just one more thing that someone might say that it won't survive, just like they said it won't survive high rates, right? And here we are, and we're at high rates, and it's just, so I think it'll be one more thing that it'll test it, but it should survive.
Okay. I just want to add one other thing to that. I agree with both of you. I think macro is the sort of big force at the moment, and yeah, crypto is. I guess the big vulnerability that crypto has is to what happens on the macro side of things. I'd add as well, I think maybe one of the biggest threats to crypto at the moment is kind of the continued sort of, in terms of I guess, sort of price appreciation and kind of interest and takeoff in the space. I think it's a continuation of the sort of apathy that we're seeing at the moment across a lot of the timeline. And I think as well, like, obviously we've just been talking about crypto in a sort of political sense. I think it is worrying that crypto is getting politicized like this. It is becoming a political tool. And I worry that people's perception of it as a political thing of one side or another I think crypto's got bad PR at the moment, and I don't think it's getting any better. And I think if we want people to come to the space and to become interested in more than just the number go up aspect of it, then crypto's PR has got to improve. And I'm not sure that it becoming a sort of political thing, although it's going to increase its visibility, get more people talking about it, whether it will actually do anything for the public perception of crypto that obviously has yet to recover from things like FTX, and I think from a lot of crypto bros just being generally obnoxious in past cycles. I would love to see sort of crypto's image burnished a bit, made more appealing to a wider audience. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on that sort of thing. I think we need better PR. Okay, and actually that leads me on to the last thing I wanted to talk about as well. So I think one of the problems that crypto has at the moment from in people's perception is not only kind of PR and all this sort of stuff and the sort of people that are involved in it, but also the fact that it can be very difficult to use. You obviously have innumerable tales of kind of hacks and scams. There's just another one today, WazirX, which I think is one of the biggest exchanges in India, has just been hacked for something north of $200 million. I would imagine that exchange users won't feel that, but still, it's not a good look. So my question is, obviously, we've long preached the doctrine of self-custody on this show, and I think on all our channels. You should be keeping your crypto in a hardware wallet. You should be keeping that hardware wallet in a secure place, etc., etc. You should be protecting your seed phrase at all costs. The thing is that obviously that is very safe and secure, but it's also not terribly convenient. And if you want to use your crypto out in the wider world, then that's not perhaps ideal. On the other hand, I think walking around with dozens of crypto apps on your phone, where all your assets are kind of available to anyone who might be able to gain access to that phone, walking around with your hardware wallet around your neck, that sort of thing, as was once advertised. I think that's at the other end of the spectrum. I think that's stupid and asking for trouble. So, but it's obviously that improves the convenience side of it. So, is there a kind of middle ground? How do we get to a stage where crypto can be used in everyday life? Can be obviously for this holy grail of mass adoption. Is there a good balance? Are there any particular ways that you guys use or that you think might be useful for this sort of thing? Rob, do you want to start?
Yeah, it depends on you, right? Like if you're Ben, it's pretty simple. You got a lot of Bitcoin, and that's pretty much it. And you're not going to Starbucks and going, "Hey, can I use my ledger to buy a latte?" No, it's not happening. You're just keeping it in cold storage. It's super simple. And then if you're Guy, you have maybe a little bit of something, right? So maybe you have your Trezor, which I know Guy really likes, and you have maybe a hot wallet here and there where you feel like the cold storage device is like your bank, your bank vault. And your hot storage, which would be like your MetaMask wallet or Phantom, would be like your wallet that you carry around. If that gets stolen, not a big deal. You don't lose everything. And then if you're like me, partial degenerate, you will have it in some kind of cold storage device for the majority of it, because your value is still 70% plus in a Bitcoin. But then you have some things on hot wallets because you're moving things around. Maybe you did something goofy, like got into meme coins, and maybe did a round trip. Hey, that happens. But all these things, it's what really comes down to is this: everybody's different, and for what they're going to do. So, if you feel like you need those two different types of devices, sure. I will just say, lastly, is like I know people will say, the maximalists will say you have to keep everything into a cold storage device. And I totally disagree with that, because I say like this: there's a way things that should be, and there's a way that things are going to be. And the way that things should be is, yes, we should be in a cold storage device. But the way things are going to be is like this: people are stuck in the mentality of the bank is there for me, and they're going to protect my money, FDIC insurance or whatever it is across the globe. And they're going to trust these third parties. And until they lose their funds, which has happened to, I think, me and maybe Guy, you won't really get it until it happens to you. And the best lessons that you're going to have is pain. So the way things should mostly be in cold storage. The way things are going to be, people are going to use it into third-party custody wallets and go from there. So depends on where you're at in the journey, in your journey.
Thanks, Rob. Yeah, Ben, Rob's right. I can't see you being the sort of person who wears a hardware wallet around their neck, but you presumably have it all in cold storage, right?
Yeah. Although I don't drink coffee, so I don't go to Starbucks anyways. But if I did, I'm not the type of person that's going to sell my Bitcoin to go buy a latte. I think I've only used Bitcoin to buy something like a few times. Like it has happened a few times. But for the most part, I just keep it. Because I mean, the reason I think, and I know there's some people talk about it as like a peer-to-peer currency, but for me, it's more of a store of value. I think the reason is because so you sell, if you have US dollars or whatever your local currency is, you're incentivized to spend it because it's going to be worth less tomorrow than it is today. So if you just hold on to it, your purchasing power goes down. But with Bitcoin, the reason you buy it is because you think it's going to be worth more tomorrow than it is today. So that does not incentivize spending. And I know there's all sorts of theoretical discussions about what currency we should be using. But the reality is, I mean, in order to incentivize spending, which is what makes the economy, go round, the inflationary aspect is what encourages that spending. If everyone just had Bitcoin, who's going to want to spend it? If you think it's going to be worth more tomorrow, why would you go spend it today? But yeah, no, I mean, I think for me, it's just, a cold storage. And now you have the other end of the spectrum, because you have these ETFs. I mean, does it, at least with regards to Bitcoin, does it get any easier or convenient for someone who's not interested in owning their own keys to just go out, go to your normal brokerage or whatever and just buy the ETF? I think the issue, look, it's a solution for some people. And I've learned that while I don't necessarily, it sort of feels like we're making similar mistakes as the past, like, letting someone else self-custody the Bitcoin. And it's like every bear market, we're always like, all right, never again, never again, never again will we let someone else own our keys. And then now we got the spot ETFs and everyone's like, all right, please take my keys to my Bitcoin. And the funny thing, I was reading about this, a lot of the money, I think, and I could be wrong, I think only about 3 billion of it was new money. A lot of the money, not all of it, but a lot of the money that went into the spot ETFs were people that were just taking their Bitcoin that they were self-custodying and saying, you know what, I don't want that responsibility anymore. I want you to take the responsibility and I will pay you to do that, right? So they take whatever, I don't know how many basis points, but they take that. And so of course these banks and these institutions are going to be like talking it up because they want you to buy it, because they make money on it regardless. because they take their cut. So yeah, I think what we really need as an industry, and honestly, it might already exist. I'm just so far down the Bitcoin dominance trail. The funny thing about that is, it's sort of like the how I always say I'm not a Bitcoin maxi. At this point, I really do wonder if I'm trying to convince you guys or if I'm trying to convince myself. Because I've been on this dominance train forever, and I'm like, I don't know what it's going to take me to get off of it. I would like to think looser monetary policy, but it's just been an easy ride. It's been an easy ride to just kind of stick with Bitcoin and let the fluff stuff work itself out. But and it might already exist, and maybe you guys can tell me if it does. I think what we need is like a killer app, basically, like an app where you can do everything on it with crypto, and it's safe, secure to use, and kind of like, we need our sort of the coming of age internet moment where you go from the interoperability between chains, right? And I there is some development in that space, I know already, but we need that transition to occur, so that if you're using, whether it's Ethereum, Solana, Polkadot, Avalanche, whatever, no one knows what you're using because the app that you're using is interoperable between all of them. So it doesn't matter. It's kind of like I'm on a MacBook Pro and I can see that it looks like Guy is also on an Apple computer, but I don't know what Rob's on, and I don't care. It's because it doesn't matter, because we have the technology to make it so that it doesn't matter. So I think that's kind of what we need. Just a kind of an app where it can appeal to the masses, where they don't have to worry about all these. I mean, to some degree, having like, a long seed phrase and securing your crypto that way, while it's good, it's also not going to appeal to the masses. It's just not, and it's never going to. And we kind of have to come to terms with that. So there's got to be some type of killer app, I think, that appeals to everyone and is also secure. I don't know. Maybe it exists already, and if it does, maybe you can tell me.
Well, we've just done a video on Solana, because obviously, like, there's a lot happening there at the moment, and that's one of the things that not just us, lots of other people have speculated on. But perhaps Solana's killer app is going to be payments, which is really boring, but it's kind of that thing that is just useful, And I think maybe this could be the way that sort of crypto grows and becomes sort of more part of the mainstream. It just makes payments easier, and I kind of hope that we get this situation where people are able to sort of use crypto to kind of practice better financial practice. To like, for instance, Bitcoin is your savings product. You're incentivized to save because its value is going up over time, whereas stable coins are pegged to a fiat currency that's only going down in value. So you're incentivized to spend them. But it's not just one great big blob of money that sort of you don't have any sort of idea about. I hope that people are able to sort of learn through crypto about the value of saving and investing and things like that, and only spend really what's kind of left over, if that's even possible to do. Cool. Okay. Well, I think we're just about at the end of things. I just wanted to flag up a couple of the comments that people had left. A couple of people, Rob, were asking about the Australian government has introduced or is introducing its equivalent to MICA. Apparently, you're the man in the know about that. Is that right?
I'm not the man to know about MICA. You guys did like 3 videos on that guy, and of course that was in the EU, and maybe Australia has adopted these MICA changes. So I think it would be you to speak to that. I have just said that when I look at it as far as like adoption and moving forward, as far as legislation, I believe EU has done a hell of a lot better job than the American government has with the SEC to give some type of clarity and guidance. I know some people say, no, that's not true. MICA hasn't really done anything for me. Trust me. If I'm going to compare Gary Gensler and the SEC compared to like what MICA does, positive or negative, at least you have some kind of clear road rules to where you want to go. We have nothing. We have nothing essentially, and we'll keep having nothing as long as Gary Gensler is still in office.
Yeah, agreed. Well, it looks like I will have to look into this Australian version of it, but it looks like the Aussies are getting their ducks in a row as well, which is good. The final question, the one that's on everyone's mind, is all about Ben's background. Is Ben now filming from jail? I thought it looked a little bit like a sort of prison waiting room behind you, Ben. Yeah, where are you joining us from?
I saw a lot of people say it looks like the two things I've seen. It looks like he's in a bunker, or it looks like he's in a classroom.
Yeah, I can see that. It looks like a good soundproof room, actually.
Our lecture is on Bitcoin dominance today. There will be a quiz at the end. I walked through one of the doors in the room.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good. This is what's behind the thin door.
Behind curtain number 1.
Yeah, this is the secret door that goes behind the door for the bathroom. This is nice.
I actually had to get rid of my my cardboard desk, which was quite a shame, because I opened it up and there were like 10 spiders inside of it.
10 spider and some old ledgers.
Yeah, so now right now I'm using like a card table. Actually, I was like, I can't use a cardboard box anymore because I don't want. I mean, it ended up being home to all these bugs, so I was like, I probably should get rid of it.
And look what happened to the price once you got rid of it, Ben.
I know. I saw you tweeting about that. You're like, oh, Bitcoin lost support the minute that Ben's desk did, or something. I don't know.
Bitcoin lost support just like Ben's computer after he got rid of his desk.
Yeah.
Ben, everyone else is going to be buying Lambos in the bull market. Are you going to treat yourself to a nice mahogany desk, a nice antique or something, or is it just going to be more cardboard?
No, I think I will get something. I kind of like to get a standing desk, I think. Or one that can convert into a standing desk, just because I spend a lot of time like sitting, so that might be kind of nice. Have you guys had one of those?
I do. It's great.
Yeah.
I got one here.
I got one in the office. I don't use it enough.
Yeah. I mean, for now I just have like a card table, but I think that'll change at some point.
All right. Well, we'll know that's the top when Ben is showing off his new desk. I look forward to it. Okay, guys. Well, I think that's about it for today. So it's great to see you again. Thanks everyone for joining. And we will be back next week. As usual, I've forgotten the order these things go on, so I'm not quite sure whose channel will be on next week.
I think it's Ben's.
Fantastic. And Ben, you can fill us in on all the joys of the. Are you around next Thursday? Will you still be partying in Nashville?
I think I will still be partying in Nashville.
Okay.
I believe, yeah. Because I don't know. I don't know if I'll be able to join next week or not. So, yeah, I don't know. Maybe I'll try, but maybe you should get a backup person in case I can't make it.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Well, Nancy Pelosi's keen, I think, so we can get her on. All right. Well, yeah, we'll take a decision on it soon and let everyone know. But thanks everyone for watching. Great to see you. Great to be back. And thanks to Rob and Ben. And we will see you again, if not next week, then very soon. Cheers.
Yep.
Okay. And